Last question.
My name is Agnostos Theos, and I operate in the area of national security, law, justice, and environment. Although I have lots of questions, but I'm going to keep my question focused on the global tumult, India's role, and what is happening within India for India's pole position, so to say. So we've come a very long distance from being part of the NAM, Vasudev Kutumbakam, which we spoke about, sending the peacekeeping troops across the world, to today supplying weapons which are being used in Palestine. And, while the ICJ decides whether it is a genocide or not, I've coined a new term that it's a demonicide because it's nothing short of demonic what's happening there. So I want to know your views that, what has led to this change in policy that today we are supplying weapons for killing of people. Secondly, we also spoke about this chest thumping about zero tolerance to terrorism, but our internal policies over the last decade have been terrorizing the citizens, whether it was the farmers' movement, whether it's journalists, whether it's anyone who raises a voice, to today, the situation in Manipur, where we have the government has handed over the largest amount of weapons in the history of not just India, probably the world. 7,000 guns, 7 lakh bullets, 15,000 bombs. And just in the last week, those very people who are responsible for the 1.5 year of the civil war in Manipur, one of those organizations has opened up branches in Delhi and Chandigarh, the Arambai Tengol.
It's not about my book, right?
I haven't read your book.
No, I can see that.
Yeah. So the question is that, one, what has led to the policy change wherein we are now supplying weapons? And what is the impact, long-term impact
I think we'll have to have a separate session on this because the boss here, Mr. Venkat Narayanan, has told us that we have to finish quickly.
No.
So I'll be
I know it's a difficult question, but please do give some answers.
I have nothing to say really because you have expressed your views.
No, I've asked a question.
So if it's about my book, I can, elaborate a few things. But if it is beyond the book, I am not a government official at all. So I am running a think tank,
and I have
come here to speak about my book.
Let me say something on this. First of all, do you have any credible, verified information about so-called weapons that have gone from India to Israel? Yes, there have been reports on this. From where these reports have emanated, what is the veracity of these reports?
There's a case which was filed in Supreme Court about this.
In India, they're filing PILs and everything all the time. It's becoming ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And therefore, I think...
there are companies which have been granted licenses for exporting those weapons.
What weapons? You see, when you talk about weapons, you are almost suggesting as if you are sending tanks and missiles and stuff like that. Now, assuming for a moment, I don't know, that if some little ammunition has gone, you're creating such a thing about it as if India is supplying wretched. The Americans are supplying the weapons all the weapons that they need in billions, constantly replenishing weapons that they get. But this is a kind of a campaign that is being carried out because it suits certain people who are behind this campaign to embarrass us. And in fact, there was also a little bit of a campaign to say that our ammunition for 155 mm guns has gone to Ukraine, probably through third countries or whatever. So I think one should take these things with a pinch of salt. As far as Manipur is concerned, again, there is a NGO campaign, a civil society campaign, on the government's handling of the Manipur situation. But this is part of our internal democratic debate. This doesn't necessarily mean what you're saying is right or whatever anybody else is saying is wrong. But, I mean, propaganda is propaganda. And
Sir, I am the petitioner in the Manipur arms loot matter in the Supreme Court.
Good.
So I know it very well.
Good.
And this is not a propaganda. We should be very concerned.
Then let the Supreme Court decide. I mean, why are you asking for an answer from us? It will come out in the Supreme Court and they will decide what the veracity of all this is.
May I just add one small thing, which I have actually written about in my book, that one of the greatest dangers to national security today is the development of a transnational NGO community that works against national interests. And this is a product of the age because of the nature of narratives created, social media, propaganda, misinformation, disinformation. A new factor or a new vector in national security these days is how to deal with the cognitive warfare influence of external narratives, and also how to deal with a transnational community that is often pitted against its own governments. We've seen it in the United States, we've seen it in India, we've seen it all over the world. So that's just an observation. But on the specifics, I think it's better to leave if matters have gone to other quarters and court and all that. There's no point in commenting on it. I think my friend is waiting here. Ms. Sharma is waiting to ask something.
Can I ask one small question?
But you are asking a relevant question, right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
The rest of the last question, I'm afraid, be brief.
You mentioned about Exxon. That's got me thinking. That's for you.
no, not for me.
No, he mentioned it, but what got me thinking is with India opening its economy to China, there will be so many vested interests in India within the country, as we were just discussing, that will actually be talking in terms of from Chinese point of view, because their economic interests are involved. There will be a sector, again, forcing the government to open further and further, allow